If you've ever wondered what the phrase feeling butterflies in your stomach or having a gut reaction means, this episode might help. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm your nurse, and on today's episode of Health Recoded, we're talking about the gut brain connection. Your gut talks to your brain, and your brain talks right back, and we're going to talk about how the two of them interpret those messages. Your brain and your gut are constantly sending signals back and forth. Those signals influence digestion, mood, stress response, even energy levels. So, we're going to break down the anatomy behind the gut brain connection, the physiology of how these systems communicate, and why gut health can influence things like mood and mental clarity. Hopefully, once we start to understand the biology, a lot of the common symptoms will start to make more sense. So, digging into the anatomy, to understand the gut brain connection, we first need to understand the systems involved. There are three main components. There are three main components. The central nervous system includes the brain, the spinal cord, and this is the primary center for the body. The enteric nervous system, and this is the nervous system specific to the GI tract, and then the vagus nerve. So, your digestive system has its own specialized nervous system called the enteric nervous system, and this is sometimes referred to as the second brain. And this is because it operates entirely on its own. It contains millions of neurons embedded within the walls of the GI tract, extending from the esophagus all the way down through your colon. In fact, there's actually more nerve cells in your gut than anywhere else in your body outside of your brain. So, these neurons control many digestive functions, including movement of food through the intestines, secretion of digestive enzymes, blood flow to digestive tissues, and coordination of gut muscle contractions. The enteric nervous system can gather information about conditions inside your GI tract, process that information locally, and then generate a response without even sending anything back to your brain. While the enteric nervous system can function independently, it is also connected to the brain through a large nerve called the vagus nerve. So, the vagus nerve is one of the longest nerves in the nervous system, traveling from the brain stem through the neck, through the abdomen, all the way down. And it's the main component to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest, which makes sense, responsible for regulating involuntary functions. So, like heart rate, breathing, pupil dilation, digestion. It carries signals between the brain and many other organs, including heart, lungs, and digestive tract. And interestingly, most of the signals traveling along the vagus nerve are actually going from the gut to the brain and not the other way around. So, brain influences digestion, but the gut is also constantly sending updates back to the brain about what is happening internally. So, the physiology of the gut brain axis, it involves several overlapping systems. So, neural signaling through the vagus nerve, hormone signaling, immune system signaling, and microbial signaling from the gut microbiome. So, let's break these down. First, neural communication. Signals from the digestive tract travel through the vagus nerve and the spinal nerves to the areas of the brain involved in emotion, stress regulation, and autonomic control. This is why changes in digestion can influence how we feel mentally. When that environment changes, it's sending signals directly to the brain that tells it that something's wrong. So, this can help to explain something like nausea or vomiting because your body is perceiving danger per se with something that was ingested and therefore it wants to expel that item. Or maybe the microbiome is dysregulated and it needs to be adjusted in some other way. Second is hormonal communication. The digestive system releases hormones that help regulate appetite, fullness, and metabolism. Examples can include ghrelin, which stimulates hunger, leptin, which signals fullness, and then various peptides that actually regulate insulin and digestion. And these hormones communicate directly with the brain to influence eating behavior and energy balance. Third is immune signaling. The gut houses a large portion of the body's immune system. Immune cells in the gut interact with bacteria, food particles, and potential pathogens. And this makes sense. We're taking in foreign objects into the gut. And that's not to say actual foreign objects, it's food, right? It's something that's not naturally inherent to your body. So, this is one of the first lines of defense when it comes to the immune system. The gut is a part of that, not only just your skin, but the gut as well, because it's going in, interpreting the different information that's being received from the food or the water, whatever it is that you drank, to make sure that it's safe for you to process in the first place. And finally, the gut microbiome. The gut microbiome refers to the trillions of bacteria living in the digestive tract. Gut microbes help produce many of the chemical neurotransmitters that convey messages between your gut and your brain. These microbes help digest certain nutrients and produce compounds that influence brain signaling, including short-chain fatty acids and neurotransmitter precursors. Some gut bacteria even influence the production of serotonin, which plays a large role in mood and emotional regulation. In fact, a large percentage of the body's serotonin is actually produced in the GI tract. Recent studies have shown that gut microbiome may be involved in various mental health and functional GI disorders. There's significant overlap among people who have functional GI disorders such as IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, and those who have mental health concerns such as anxiety or depression. So, how does the gut influence mood and cognition? The communication between the gut and the brain goes both directions, as we talked about. Just as stress can influence digestion, gut health can also influence brain function. Changes in the gut microbiome, inflammation in the digestive tract, or disruptions in digestive signaling can affect how the brain processes information. And so this shows up in, like we were talking about, anxiety, depression, brain fog, and fatigue. And this doesn't mean that the gut is the sole cause of these experiences. It just highlights how interconnected these systems are. The brain and the gut are constantly exchanging information about the internal environment in the body, and when the gut environment changes, the brain receives those signals. And in the inverse, the brain can receive different signals from the external environment and will therefore alter the gut environment because of that activation that's being perceived in the external environment. So this creates a feedback loop that may exacerbate both GI and neurological symptoms. This bidirectional communication highlights the complexity of this connection in the gut-brain axis. So, how do gut-brain connection issues present in real life? Disorders related to gut-brain axis may include irritable bowel syndrome or functional constipation or diarrhea, anxiety or depression, chronic stress or fatigue, neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis, and this is just to name a few. This is not an exhaustive list. There are many other conditions and presentations where the gut-brain axis can become dysregulated or disconnected, and then therefore these presentations can occur. So how this presents in your body: physical GI symptoms such as chronic pain, bloating, constipation or diarrhea, to name a few. Mental and emotional symptoms include heightened anxiety, depression, mood swings, or chronic fatigue. Cognitive issues such as brain fog, poor concentration, and impaired memory. And then lifestyle disruptions, avoidance of food, missing out on social events, work, or school due to fear of these symptoms. So then there's also psychosomatic sensations such as gut feelings. So if these become intensely painful or constant, it could signal that something else is going on. So these issues arise when communication between the gut's enteric nervous system and the brain is disrupted via the vagus nerve or chemical signals, often creating a vicious cycle where stress triggers gut issues or poor gut health then triggers worsened mood or stress. And this is not to say that anything is wrong with your body or that you are broken, but your body is just showing you that something may be dysregulated or needs to be paid attention to. Essentially, it's just asking you to listen. So, my nursing perspective, supporting gut-brain health. From a clinical perspective, supporting the gut-brain connection usually comes back to basic physiological foundations: nutrition, dietary fiber, probiotics, regular meals. We're going to talk about all of these things, but having these things regulated is going to ideally help you to achieve a more regulated gut-brain health and connection. And then if it extends further beyond that, you're still doing these things, that would be the point where we would start to want to maybe seek evaluation and get something else on board or someone else on board to figure out what else is going on. So I always like to make the disclaimer that this is not advice to replace your practitioner if you have one of these diagnoses and you've already gone and sought some sort of evaluation. I'm not sitting here saying that they don't know what they're talking about or that I'm the expert here and that this is what you should do instead. I'm just advocating for ways that we can support our body through these issues. So, nutrition, starting out with that one, it plays a major role. A good rule of thumb to improve your gut health naturally is to eat a wide range of whole foods, emphasizing plants. A varied diet supports a healthy, balanced gut microbiome. Whole foods and plants also pack more nutrition per calorie than processed foods, leaving less room for harmful additives, sweeteners, and saturated fats. I like to talk about this a lot. Food is medicine. And I'm not saying that in a way to say it like we need to go medicate ourselves with food, because I don't want us to get into this mental cycle of, oh, I'm going to go eat my feelings. But what you put into your body is what you get out. And so if you're eating healthy, nutrient-dense foods, then your body can do something with that. But if you get at these highly processed, sugary items like candy or chips or something like that, not to ostracize those items and say that they're bad, but eating those things consistently can lead to dysregulation in your body because it's evolution and biologically speaking not used to taking those things in. So I always support whole foods because they're just better for you, and doing the other items, the more processed items, in moderation, okay? Supporting dietary fiber is another key point. This is beneficial for gut bacteria and it helps produce short-chain fatty acids that support the gut lining. So soluble and insoluble fiber are both important, and most plants have both kinds. So this will help keep your bowel movements regular and to help keep the microbiota inside healthy. These microbes in turn then nourish your gut lining. So if we're nourishing those gut microbes, then they're nourishing our gut, and then we can hopefully avoid any other further issues in the future. So, leading into probiotics, these are the live bacteria in fermented food like yogurt or sauerkraut. And then prebiotics on the other side of that, that's the fibers and the complex starches that the bacteria like to eat. So, together they improve digestion, boost immunity, and enhance nutrient absorption by increasing beneficial bacteria and reducing harmful ones. So, the key difference here, probiotics are live, beneficial bacteria, and prebiotics are the food for them. But when they're taken together, they're known as symbiotics, which allows for good bacteria to grow and thrive more effectively. So initial digestive changes are often felt within 2 to 4 weeks once you start these, but overall benefits would be after taking them for roughly 6 to 8 weeks if this is something you want to start doing or looking into. Regular meals will help regulate digestive hormone signaling. This helps the GI tract to take the appropriate amount of time to digest the food that it is presented with. That way, we can avoid dumping too much food in at once or starving the system of the nutrients that it needs from too prolonged a period of time from eating. But this is a good point to highlight intermittent fasting. This can strengthen the gut-brain connection by reducing inflammation, altering gut microbiota composition, and boosting BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So key effects of fasting on the gut-brain axis: increasing beneficial types of gut bacteria that support metabolic health, reducing inflammation, so it lowers inflammatory signals to the brain, promoting better mood and cognitive function. Ketone production. So during fasting states, the liver produces ketones as fuel, which crosses the blood-brain barrier and reduces oxidative stress, increases that BDNF, and supports neuron growth and synaptic plasticity, which then improves your memory. And then these are only a few of the benefits of intermittent fasting. So there are others, but these are just a few that I'm listing. But the other one I'm going to mention here is neuroendocrine shifts. So fasting can increase hormone levels like ghrelin that we talked about, and that affects brain reward circuitry through metabolic switching and improve cognitive function, particularly in aging brains. So essentially, fasting acts as a stressor that triggers repair mechanisms in the gut, which in turn signals the brain to enhance its resilience, memory, and cognitive performance. I want to make a disclaimer here though. Research is starting to show that intermittent fasting is not recommended for females, particularly of childbearing years, at least not for the long term. Stacey Sims talks a lot about this, but this is mostly due to our hormone cycles. Women cannot fast in the same way as men and expect to see the same results. It essentially leads to starvation mode, and so the body is starting to conserve energy and nutrients because it thinks that you're starving it and that you're not going to give it enough to actually do something with. So if you must fast, it is recommended to do a shortened window, such as 16 hours non-fasting and 8 hours fasting. But that roughly translates to an average day. So if 8 hours is what you slept, that would make sense that you're not eating. So maybe 12 and 12, but anything much more beyond that, research is starting to show that it really isn't recommended for women of childbearing years. So ladies, if you're listening, that might be something to consider. So, stress management is another point of helping to support our gut brain connection. It's important because chronic sympathetic activation or nervous system activation can suppress digestive activity and alter gut motility. So, if our bodies stay in this heightened stress response, the parasympathetic nervous system does not get to activate appropriately. And that's the rest or digest system. And that's the one that we want to work for the GI tract. So, if stress is suppressing that state, then a healthy digestion is likely not going to happen. Movement is also important for gut and brain regulation. It can help to regulate digestive motility and improve blood flow to the GI tract. And this can include walking or yoga or weight training, going on a daily run, anything to get consistent movement and blood flow so that the body can promote adequate motility not only throughout the gut but throughout the body. And then, of course, we always want to improve our sleep. Sleep plays a key role in both microbiome regulation and nervous system recovery. This is similar to stress management. If the brain and the GI tract are not allowed enough time at night to rest and recover, then it has less capacity to do what it needs during the day and waking hours. So the quality of sleep also plays a big role because the deeper REM cycles actually help to promote adequate neurochemical release during the day, thereby resulting in more adequate signaling between the gut and the brain throughout the day. So, recommended hours of sleep for males, it's 7 to 8 hours, and then for females, it's 9 to 10, and this is because of the hormone cycles. We also want to sleep in a cool, dark room if we can. No food, devices, or activation roughly an hour before bed. This is going to help our nervous system to regulate and calm down so that we can get to sleep, but also get restful sleep throughout the night. And none of these interventions act on the gut brain axis in isolation. Instead, they help to support the broader systems that influence the brain and the digestive tract, which in turn helps to support effective communication between the two. So, my key takeaways for today: the gut and the brain are connected through a communication network known as the gut brain axis. This system involves neural signals, hormones, immune signaling, and the gut microbiome. The digestive system has its own nervous system, the enteric nervous system, which can communicate directly with the brain or operate entirely on its own. Changes in gut health can influence mood, cognition, and overall well-being through multiple biological pathways, which can result in a variety of presentations or medical conditions. Understanding this connection helps to explain why digestive symptoms and emotional stress often appear together. So the gut and the brain are not separate systems operating independently. They're part of an integrated communication network that helps regulate digestion, energy use, immune activity, and emotional response. Understanding how these systems interact helps us to recognize that many common symptoms are part of a broader physiological pattern rather than isolated problems. And like many aspects of health, supporting the system often comes back to the fundamentals: nutrition, sleep, stress regulation, and overall physiological balance. If this episode helped clarify how the gut and the brain communicate, share it with someone who might find it helpful. Like and subscribe, and send me any questions you might have. And as always, thank you for listening to Health Recoded, and I'll see you guys next week.